From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay, a young producer who puts in the hours and the work.
He looks over everything from the cattle aspect of it to the farming. He really is the central guy.
Meet this year's Tomorrow's Top Producer Horizon Award winner. New numbers show just how hard of a year 2019 was on so many producers. And the cattle market under pressure lately. Will a new report give it the boost it needs? Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Clinton is on assignment. The cattle industry watching to see how livestock markets will react today after Friday's release of this year's first cattle inventory report.
The report from USDA shows inventory was down slightly to start the year. Cattle and calves in the U.S. totaling 94.4 million head, down a bit from last year. All cows and heifers that have calved is estimated at 40.7 million head. That's 1% below last year. Checking the calf crop, that was also down 1%. The 2019 calf crop was estimated at 36.1 million head.
The market definitely had the numbers pretty much pegged, and which isn't always the case, but it should be kind of a neutral reaction, I would think. It's the first time in 6 years we've had numbers come in lower, so that's good.
Hackbarth also adds the coronavirus coming out of China has scared the market right now.
More evidence that last year was a tough one for producers. A new report says U.S. farm bankruptcies jumped up 20% in 2019. The American Farm Bureau Federation releasing this graphic showing a regional breakdown of those bankruptcies. The Midwest hard hit with 273 filings. The group saying the double-digit hike across the country is the highest level since 2011 when the country was still recovering from the recession. AFBF reports in total 595 farms declared Chapter 12 bankruptcy. This is despite billions of dollars farmers received in trade aid payments from the government because of tariffs from the trade war and disaster aid payments due to natural disasters. Bankers say some farmers are turning to alternative lending with higher interest rates in an effort to save the farm and not file for bankruptcy.
Banks don't lend you 100% of what you need to plant your crop. You have to put something in there. You got to have your skin in the game, 20%, 30% in. Farmers were unable to make that requirement, so they had to seek alternative methods, which is alternative finance, which are lenders who lend based on just crop inventory, government payments, crop insurance, those type things. So they have no hard collateral. So in having no hard collateral, the risk-reward relationship shifts a little bit. When you have no hard collateral, that's a bigger risk the lender's taking. So the bigger reward for them is a higher rate. So there is going to be a trade-off there, but there is a place for alternative lending in the market because had they not been there, some farmers would not have been financed at all.
Arrington says farmers who choose this are also ones who don't like the idea of having their real estate encumbered. The EPA is reaffirming weed killer glyphosate does not cause cancer. Glyphosate is the most widely used herbicide in the world and is in Bayer AG's Roundup, which has been a target of lawsuits. The EPA releasing a statement saying, quote, there are no risks of concern to human health when glyphosate is used according to the label and that it is not a carcinogen, end quote. The announcement runs counter to the World Health Organization classifying glyphosate as, quote, probably carcinogenic to humans in 2015. Bayer welcoming the announcement from the EPA, saying, quote, EPA's latest decision on glyphosate-based herbicides adds to the long-term evaluation of leading international health authorities that these products can be used safely and that glyphosate is not carcinogenic, end quote. This could soon be a big help on the farm, better access to high-speed internet. The Federal Communications Commission is setting aside $20 billion to fund rural broadband. The Rural Digital Opportunity Fund will provide the funding over 10 years. The money is coming from the agency's Universal Service Fund. It's collected from a fee paid in people's monthly phone bills. It comes as many phone companies promote 5G networks, while some in rural America lack even basic internet service.
There is an extreme lack of infrastructure in rural America, whereas in a city you'll have fiber in the ground, you'll have buildings, you'll have vertical assets in the form of towers. In rural communities, you may have a water tank, you may have a tower, but you don't have the same access to existing infrastructure on which you can build. And what that means is that it's a lot more expensive to bring the infrastructure into these rural communities.
So that's the latest FCC data is just shy of 25 million Americans don't have broadband access to broadband connectivity, and of those 19 million, just over 19 million live in rural parts of the country. Microsoft conducted a usage data analysis that found that number is really likely much higher, and that as many as 168 million Americans don't actually access the internet at broadband speeds.
Prior efforts have frequently found similar funding diverted for other purposes once the money was received in states. February could be starting off with snow for portions of the country. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joins us with an update.
Good morning, Betsy. You're absolutely right. I'm going to show you a map here showing the total amounts of snow starting at 7 a.m. Friday. This is an estimate, obviously, but you can see huge amounts. Many of the higher elevations in the Rockies getting more than a foot of snow, and then some light snow streaking into the Central Plains as we head into the first part of this week. So it is going to be a little bit on the nasty side in the west. Now check out this phenomenon. The National Weather Service in Fairbanks, Alaska, taking this picture just outside their office. This is a beautiful display of a sun pillar and sun dogs on both sides, all thanks to the low sun angle and ice crystals in the air. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
The U.S. telling Americans not to travel to China right now due to the spread of a deadly virus. And that virus is continuing to impact the markets. We'll have more on what it could mean for demand coming up. And later, a young farmer already leaving his mark on the industry thanks to a lot of hard work. Fears about the coronavirus are continuing to weigh on the soybean market. It ended the week down, marking the 9th straight day of declines. We get an update on where we're starting the week from the CME.
Today in the grain market, soybeans were a little bit easier. I think that soft export sales report is a little bit of an indication, but and especially that it's only been the 4th time this year that it has been on the downside. But the truth is this market is kind of exhausted. It's the last day of the month, and we're down 85 cents on the soybeans from January 1. This was supposed to be a market that was supposed to really get turned around with the signing of the Phase 1 trade deal, but the market just didn't respond that way right now. And I think that the fact that, you know, we were just getting started with the 2020 year and the decade, really this has put a damper on the markets across the board. Today in the livestock market, it seems like cattle recovered somewhat. I think some of the month-end short covering really helped the market and supported a little bit. I think that the downturn was oversold and a bearish tone was a little bit exhausted, but emotions are definitely ruling this market right now and kind of overtaking some of the fundamentals. So anything can happen from here on out. We have to watch out as well with the World Health Organization declaring a national or an international emergency. I think could definitely slow down just some of the movement of the beef industry and exports across the board. So that could definitely take its toll in the markets for right now.
As we mentioned, markets continue to react to the news about the coronavirus and the potential impacts of Chinese demand. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan joins us once again from the Top Producers Summit with more. Tyne?
Here now with Dan Bazzi, Ag Resource Company. Dan, a lot of talk about coronavirus, a lot of hype in the markets, but is that just hype, or do you think there are concerns that are grounded?
Well, listen, we all believe that getting sick is not a good thing, and when you have that kind of process that this is a new disease, everybody gets very, very worried. But what I look at is mortality rates, and those mortality rates are dropping. We're probably going to end up below 2% by the end of it. So I think at the end of the day, once China gets, how should I say it, their arms around the incidence of it all, we'll all look at mortality and say, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, this will pass, much like SARS did.
So you do not see this impacting the promise to buy $40 billion worth of ag goods longer term?
I think short term, the Chinese may even have a more acute need for agricultural products, particularly in the finished area like meats or those kind of products, because Chinese grocery stores are just being depleted at a very rapid rate. Think about a disease spreading, wearing masks. What you're going to do is protect the family by buying lots of food. So those pantries are getting filled, and the Chinese government now has this problem of getting enough foodstuffs and supplies to restock the groceries.
Okay, I know that you did some analysis trying to figure out if China buys $40 billion of ag goods, what would it be? What are you most bullish on, grains or meats?
Actually, meats. I mean, at toss, meats are the very easy winner. Dairy would be right in that same category as meats because we believe the Chinese, when you look at pork, beef, and dairy combined, could take somewhere around $8.5 billion of those products, then followed by soybeans at 35. But that's just a replacement of what they were doing in South America. So as we think about it, meats are the big winner for 2020.
Okay, and when I was at the White House a couple years ago, they pulled out a chart about this is why we're in the trade war, because we are losing market share when it comes to soybeans into China. We know we lost market share at a little bit more rapid of a pace with the trade war. Yep. Do you think we can ever get that market share back?
We will get the market share back. Bilaterals will help that. The problem with bilaterals, though, is they will only buy soybeans from the U.S. when we are the cheapest source. So this will be a new crop phenomenon. This will be starting somewhere in the time frame of March, April. The Chinese will start buying the new crop. We believe there'll maybe be 5 million metric tons that will still be old crop this year. But I want producers to really think about that big export program to China from really August, September, October, November, December going forward. That's the time frame when U.S. soybeans will shine heading into the Far East.
Dan, thank you. I really appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back with much more right here on Ag Day.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Mike Hoffman joins us now for weather. Mike, what's going on for weather as we start this Monday?
Well, we have a big storm system coming in out west. We talked about that earlier in the show, and that's going to be giving us some moisture. But this is looking at the past week of rainfall. And obviously, some of this is showing what the snow would melt down to. So it's basically the amount of moisture that we've seen a week ago Saturday through this past Friday. And you can see there have been some amounts, East Coast, Gulf Coast, but the heaviest amounts, no question, in the Pacific Northwest, especially far western Washington, northwestern Oregon, with some areas there getting 3 to 5 inches of rain or melted snow. Most of that's rain, but there's a few high elevations in there. And then the other place that got a decent amount was in parts of the Northeast, mainly in the New York State area, central portions of the state. But really, that was not widespread, and a lot of areas didn't get a whole lot out of that. Here's the drought monitor. It's been improving slowly over the past few weeks. I mean, most areas in the southeast aren't worried about dryness anymore, and it's continuing to improve in the Pacific Northwest. But it's remained fairly dry Four Corner region into a small part of southwestern Kansas and parts of Texas, especially southern and eastern areas now. Taking a look at the jet stream as we head through this week. This is kind of interesting. This is that big storm coming in out west. That's going to move slowly, and then it's eventually going to push on into the Great Lakes and into the Northeast as we head through the end of the week, and that's going to be a shot of fairly cold air behind it. But it may not last real long. This is an interesting situation. You can get a lot of moisture coming up out of the southwest, and wherever the cold air is, it's going to dump some snow, but it could also dump a fair amount of rain. This might be a wet pattern as we head into next week. We'll be talking about that. Temperatures this week, however, I'm going to go above normal. Eastern Great Lakes, most of the East Coast, southeast. Below normal from Iowa to western Texas and all the way to the west coast. As far as precipitation this week, below normal in the northern plains, the southwest. Above normal with that system coming into the northwest, into the central Rockies, and then also as it moves through the eastern portions of the country. 90-day outlook first for February, below normal for the northern half of the country except the northeast, above normal far south. We're basically going to, in March, shove everything farther north and continue to do that as we head through April. Precipitation over the next 90 days, I'll go above normal mid-Atlantic to Texas, above normal far northwest, and also below normal in the western portions of the country. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to Boulder, Colorado. First of all, cloudy, light snow at times, high temperature of 26. Alpena, Michigan, variably cloudy with some sunshine, high around 38. And St. Augustine, Florida, partly sunny skies on the pleasant side, high of 70.
Still ahead, a young farmer who's not afraid of hard work and is already seeing it pay off. And Machinery Pete.
I've seen some amazing prices at auction the past month. Stay tuned, folks. I'll clue you in.
Well, not much shocks Machinery Pete in the used equipment market, but there are some recent auction prices that have caught his attention.
So the last 30 years, folks, I've compiled over 1 million auction prices. I tell you, pretty interesting, just in the last month, I've seen the highest auction price ever on a combine, a planter, and the second highest price ever on a sprayer. So if we do the rundown here, here's the picture of the combine, a 2018 John Deere S790 on tracks, 324 engine hours on it. This sold on an online dealer auction. It was back on December 12th, and it came out of central Minnesota, went for $396,000, almost $400K. Now the planter, well, that was just a week ago Saturday. Here's a picture of it. A 2019 John Deere DB60 24/30 inch, done 4,500 acres. This thing was loaded, and it sold for $240,000. Again, highest auction price I've ever seen on a planter. And the sprayer, well, here's a picture of it. It's a 2017 Hagie STS-16, a big boy, 1,600 gallons, 609 hours on it. This thing sold 2 weeks ago on a farm auction kind of in the east central Nebraska area, went for $312,000. Again, second highest auction price I've ever seen on a self-propelled sprayer. Now the used farm equipment market, it's got two hot spots right now. The first one, we talk about it almost every week here. It's that 9, 10, 11-year-old, a little bit older, pre-def, pre-tier 4, good condition stuff, very hot. And the other hot spot, we just talked about it, the 1 to 3-year-old stuff under warranty, still cheaper than new, a lot of buyer demand for that stuff.
Coming up, a young farmer who's all about being hands-on and where to take his farm in the future. Meet another top producer award winner next.
Join us at World Ag Expo, February 11th through the 13th in Tulare, California at the International Agri Center. Go to worldagexpo.com/buy-tickets and use promo code FARMJOURNAL to save $3 per ticket ordered online. Tickets are $15 at the gate.
We had a great time at this year's Top Producer Summit, and we have one more winner to tell you about. A young farmer who's not afraid to put in a hard day's work and at the same time use the latest technology to help grow his business. He's this year's Tomorrow's Top Producer Horizon Award winner.
Early mornings in the payloader.
Usually about 7:30. Start feeding, I guess.
Equals grunt work in the bitter cold.
Now this morning it's 10 below.
These types of hands-on jobs are how Chase DeWitts of Steele, North Dakota started his career.
Sometimes people ask me, what else would you do if you're not farming? And I don't have a clue how to answer that question.
Don't get him wrong, he's been through struggles on the farm, including 2019, as he's still harvesting and drying last year's crop.
It's just going to be all winter, I'm afraid. It seems to be a continuous, ongoing agony.
But it's all part of the current day-to-day at CD Acres and DeWitt's Feedlot, which he owns and manages with his wife, Erin. Their twins, McCoy and Clinch, are sure to become future farmers.
Chase always says that I'm raising our retirement plan.
That is, if they work off the homestead farm first.
My sons will have to leave the farm. I'm not going to make them be me.
Yet, DeWitt's choices have worked out. He has more than 34,000 acres of crop, hay, and grazing land with 2 different grain storage locations. DeWitt's has a feed yard with 2,500 head of primarily Angus cross cattle.
I guess I just took opportunities as they came.
Hard work began early when he started his first cow herd during high school back in 1998. In 2004, he rented his first piece of property, which started his farming career full-time, doing those on-farm jobs because he had to, and many that he's still doing today.
He looks over everything from the cattle aspect of it to the farming. He really is the central guy.
That continuous growth followed suit in 2005. He also started construction on his feed yard, DeWitt's Feedlot, as part of an EQIP project through USDA and a $100,000 grant.
It basically doubled my equity in 1 year. And then the thing was with custom feeding cattle, I had cash flow.
From 2009 to 2013, he grew when others did not.
I was in a period of immense growth when producers 10, 20 years older than me were probably drastically reducing their debt.
In 1 year, his cow herd grew from 300 to 1,200 head. He expanded by renting and purchasing expiring CRP acres and turned some of it into farm fields.
And the thing was, a lot of the CRP, especially as you go to the west, there was a lot of land in CRP, which is actually some pretty highly productive land.
When it comes to operations, the DeWitts are working on implementing a new feed tracking program to show the true cost of gains and break-evens on their cattle. He's starting to use computer diagnostics for his truck and equipment fleet,
Can't get it in there or what?
which allows him to complete almost all repairs and maintenance in-house. Even though DeWitts may own and manage, he still likes being hands-on. Chores that need to be done.
It only takes a little over an hour, but we feed twice a day, so.
Jobs he does now because he enjoys them, as his passion for the work continues to feed his future. Congratulations to Chase DeWitts, the 2020 Horizon Award winner.
And we congratulate all of our top producer winners. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.